Hi everyone, it's Jeff Monroe from Middlebury, working my way through the collector's tour here in the fall of 2024. And I'm with Dust 18 right now at the western end of the Uinta Mountains. And yeah, I'll admit that this setting looks quite a bit different than the locations of any of my other dust collectors. But Dust 18 actually does a nice job of illustrating many of the things that are going on in part of the larger Dust Squared project, of which my collector network is just one small part. So I thought I'd explain a little bit of that to you while we're here. This site actually was an old weather station for the US Forest Service. If I grab this, turn it around, the weather instruments, essentially recording temperature and humidity, were in this box here for decades until the site was essentially mothballed. It's certainly not pretty right now. Um, but several years ago, it was part of a different project. Colleagues of mine from Brigham Young University installed this beautiful new weather station here to build upon this long record that the Forest Service had generated. So, with that in mind, the way that Dust Squared can kind of forge ahead while simultaneously taking advantage of existing data and existing infrastructure, it seemed to make sense to put one of my dust collectors here too, even though it's a very different type of site. So I put Dust 18 right up on top of the old weather instrument shed. So it's just tied down there, and has actually been working pretty well. So I'll get busy here in a moment emptying that. There's some other instrumentation here though that does a nice job of illuminating other aspects of Dust Squared. Try to walk you out here without making anybody motion sick. There's an old precipitation can here with the snow gauge around it. Again, refurbished so that we can have modern precipitation data. And then out here in the sage, just so my dust collector doesn't feel too lonely, there's another dust collector, what's called a wet dry sampler. This one I just like because it's just so clever. So the idea here is that this sensor here on the far side can detect whether there's precipitation falling or not. And when it's dry like it is now, then the can on the right is covered. That would be the wet can, and dust can only fall into the can on the left, which is the dry can. If the sensor picks up any liquid precip, snow or rain, then this whole little lid or roof kind of moves over to cover the dry one and exposes the wet one. So I think that this is such a clever idea. My colleague on the Dust Squared project, Janice Brainy from Utah State University, gave us this. And so again, we thought with the fact that we have so much existing information here, this long climate record, thanks to the Forest Service, the very detailed, newer climate record from the weather station that the folks from BYU installed. Figured I put my sampler here as well. We got the wet dry sampler here. Put all that together, and it seems like we're doing a pretty nice job of constraining what dust deposition is like at this particular site. Obviously lower elevation, obviously different type of vegetation than my other mountain samplers, but still an important data point as we strive to understand dust deposition across this whole region. So I'm gonna get to work emptying Dust 18. Thanks for listening. See you again at the next collector. Thanks to the US Forest Service for permission to deploy here. And thanks to the National Science Foundation for their continued support of Dust Squared.